Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next session of our bi-weekly webinar series exploring 3D Experience Works live. If this is your first time using GoToWebinar, take a look at the screen right now, just showing you how you can view this presentation in full screen, which is recommended. And you can also ask questions right in the question box of the webinar window, and we will answer as many questions as we possibly can at the end of today's session. If we didn't get to your question, though, we'll be sure to follow up with you individually via email. But with that, let's just get right into things today. This is the next session of exploring 3D Experience Works live. There's me on the left and there's John on the right, as you can see us also in our webcams. And we are both industry process consultants from Dassault Systems SolidWorks, both usually working out of Waltham, Massachusetts, but currently rocking the home office, as everyone else also is for the most part. So if you're new to this webinar series, you might be wondering, what is 3D Experience Works? And more importantly, why should you care? Well, to answer that, we can turn to SolidWorks, our beloved SolidWorks. So if you're familiar with SolidWorks 3D CAD, then you might know that both that product and the brand itself is one of many software brands that have been accumulated by Dassault Systems over the years. And SolidWorks has come such a long way over the past quarter century or so, to the point where it's become so powerful and so functional that it's tough to imagine that there's something SolidWorks can't do. And that is only until you consider the power of some of Dassault Systems' other brands. So all of these other brands together come together to form this one-stop shop for all engineering and business needs called the 3D Experience platform, which utilizes all the different brands that you can see on screen here. So this still leads to the question, what is 3D Experience Works? Well, 3D Experience Works is really just a subset of these brands and certain tools and functionalities offered by these different brands aimed at helping product development teams attack that product development process in these different phases of the engineering and design process. So if you're an engineer, if you're a designer, if you're an engineering manager, or you're somehow a stakeholder on a product development team, then you're probably familiar with the process that most product development teams take to actually go through and come out with a finished product. Feeding off of those market demands to define the problem, specify the requirements, and then getting into kind of a cyclical process of brainstorming solutions, developing those solutions, and then simulating and testing them until you're finally ready to land on your final product that you can take to market. So all of these different brands fit their way into different areas of this product development process, and each brings something different to the table, different functionalities that are specific to that phase. Today, however, we're going to be looking specifically at the simulation and testing to go to market. And even more specifically, from the point that design and engineering work is actually complete, but before manufacturers have actually begun production to get it out on the market. And here to join us today is Lisa Costa, expert in all things Innovia, and she's going to be here with us today to show us one of Innovia's newer products, Product Release Engineer, to help product development teams who are at this point, who are done with their design, but ready to move forward and bring their ideas to market. So Lisa, want to introduce Product Release Engineer to us?
Sure, I'd love to. So I just want to say hi, and then I'm going to turn off my camera while we go through the presentation, but just say hello to everybody. I'll be back for the questions at the end, but I'll just turn off my webcam for now. So again, as we mentioned, SolidWorks, big in the design and development aspect and engineering aspect of getting a product out the door, but there are other people and other things that happen to get product released, if you will, hence the name Product Release Engineer. So what we're going to see today is a single environment for all the product data, not just the CAD. Many of the PDM tools that we've had in the past tend to dwell on the files and then the actual SolidWorks files or data. What we're going to see is that we have a tool or a way to create, use, manage, and release product data without consuming a CAD license or consuming the time of our engineers that they could be spent doing engineering, right? And then also we'll be able to see how we can create, manage, and export your bill of material information to get that downstream either to other people to use it or to, the people that are roles, or to actual downstream systems that need to consume that engineering bill of material data. So what is our story today? Well, if you've tuned in for any of these sessions with John and Gian, you know that I've joined them in the past, and part of that was to develop a caulking gun, and we use the 100% cloud SOLIDWORKS tools, 3D Sculptor, 3D Creator. I didn't use them, they did. And we had a project plan, and we just went through some of the collaboration tools of how a non-CAD person could interact with the engineers while they're doing that. So the good news is our caulking gun is a huge success. Yay! Go team. And so what we want to do is we've partnered with one of the #1 adhesive manufacturers to come up with some innovative products, which is tubes filled with adhesive to go along with the gun. So really it's more of a product task than it is an engineering task. We do need to come up with our own, patent pending earth-shattering tube design that goes in our earth-shattering gun design. But anyway, we're going to put them in a box, and we're going to put them on a shelf and make them available to industry that way. So really it's about expanding our business and getting more business by having partnerships and getting another product out the door. We're actually going to see 2 products out the door, one that includes a gun, one that doesn't, but we'll see what that looks like. So our story is actually going to be using 2 users, Eric the engineer, played by John, and then Megan manager, played by myself. So we're going to take a look, and we're going to start with Eric, who is going to be working in his tool of choice today. Instead of being in the 100% cloud, he's going to be in the cloud connected version of SolidWorks, which is 3DEXPERIENCE SolidWorks. So take it away, Eric.
Thanks, Lisa, or I guess should I say Megan? Manager?
That would be Ms. Megan Manager.
Ms. Megan Manager.
MMM.
My apologies.
Ms. Megan Manager. It's okay, Mr. Eric Engineer, Esquire.
Yes. All right, so let's see what Eric Engineer is up to. Eric's been using 3DEXPERIENCE SolidWorks to make this caulking tube. A simple save up to the cloud takes just a few seconds. Of course, then he can unreserve the parts now that they're all complete. And that's pretty much all Eric Engineer has to do. The rest is really going to be up to Megan Manager. So to close the loop with his manager, however, he goes to the compass in his 3DEXPERIENCE window to launch the app Collaborative Tasks. And in this case, he sees that all the tasks assigned to him, and in this case, of course, he's just finishing up this caulking tube task. So he could add a description, change the priority state. In this case, he's just gonna add the tube itself as a deliverable in the task, save it to close, and for the most satisfying part of it all, he's going to drag the task into the completed column. So again, Eric's job's really simple. All of his work is done. He can move on to the next task on his list, leaving the rest up to Megan Manager.
Right you are. Let's see how Megan responds now.
Fantastic. If Eric thought it was satisfying seeing those tasks completed when he's actually done them, it's even more so when you're running the project and can see when people finish them. So I do get a notification. Megan sees that the tube design is done, and then she can dive right into that exact same task from a project or Gantt type view and take a look at that deliverable. So a couple things to note here. Obviously, you can see the attachment. So the input for Eric was the gun, right? So he made a tube assembly that fits the gun, because if it didn't, that would be kind of counterintuitive to what we're trying to do. But what we're going to see Megan do is actually grab that deliverable without having to search for it, without having to go anywhere else, and take it and use it in her tool of choice today, which is going to be that engineering release app, which is part of product release engineer. So she's just going to drag and drop that deliverable right over to her tab here and drop it into this tool or app. She also has a viewer to the right. She can drag and drop it into the viewer just to confirm that everything, because she's not running SolidWorks or 3DEXPERIENCE SolidWorks, so she's using the viewer to take a look at the geometry, and then the left-hand side looking at the product structure. And she does have a bookmark editor also on that little tab that she's got going on her dashboard, which we'll take a look at later. So again, not a particularly complex design, no offense to Eric, but it is what we needed. But she can just visualize it, use the viewer. There's a lot of other things you can do that viewer we're not going to talk about today, exploded views, things like that. What I want to do is actually pull a number first. I'm going to pull a number for the top level assembly and the children. So again, this is the old days of pulling a number. I don't have to bother Eric to do that. And also I'm going to release this. I'm going to release the parent and the children. So this is me using that one-stop shop, that little tool called engineering release, to get, pull part numbers, release this thing. Again, this is something I'm sure you've seen from previous webinars that you could do inside of the CAD tools. You can access the life cycle, or there's an app called Life Cycle and Maturity, but this allows you to access all that functionality right from this tool without having to go anywhere else. So just handy to bring all that capability into one place, right? A lot of power here. So we're going to release the parent and the children. So now they're all released. So that's the caulk tube assembly that we need. So the next thing I want to do is, so far we have the gun that's released. We have the caulk tube assembly that's released. So what Megan wants to do next is to make that packaging, that top level item to hold, the gun, the tubes for going to market with. So she's going to she just makes that app a little bigger, gets herself a little more real estate, and she's going to create a new engineering item. So this is going to be an item that has no CAD associated with it. It's just going to be this top level container. Well, it's kind of a adhesive joke there. But anyway, so she's going to call it the gun with tubes package and save that, and also do the same thing she did before, which is to pull a number for this new product and that we're going to go to market with, which is a combination of a few other things as well. So she's going to go over and pull an engineering item number, and then she's going to start building that structure. Okay, and again, that numbering is the numbering that we've set up in the system. Everybody's following the same numbering convention no matter where they pull the number from. First thing she's going to do is drag and drop the caulking gun final assembly from our previous webinars into the structure. Then she's going to go back to that project tab and grab that deliverable again and drag and drop it into the structure as well. So before you saw me drag and drop and open it up, now she's going to make it a child of this top level assembly. So what do we want to do next? Next, we want to actually build up this structure with everything else that's going to be in this package, and that includes a box. So the box is a size box that is going to fit the one gun, 3 of the tubes, and filled with adhesive. So then you're going to see here, to make this more accurate, she's going to go in and actually change the quantity to 3 tubes. So again, the goal is a box, the gun, 3 tubes, and then we also need the adhesive, right? But the adhesive isn't really something that we're going to CAD. We're never going to model the guts of the tube, right? I mean, so Eric designed an empty tube. What we want to do is make sure that we know how much material we need to make each package that has 3 tubes in it. So you can see here the different types of engineering items. So far, I've been taking existing engineering items and dragging and dropping them into the structure, right? From bookmarks, from deliverables. Now you're going to see you make a brand new item, and this one's going to be a different type. It's going to be a new volume of material. Now this material has already been vetted from our partner. It exists in our system. So I'm just going to pick that caulking material from our partner and then put a volume. So instead of a quantity like 1, 2, or 3, it actually has 1.2 liters. Next thing I want to do is create a special type of item, which is a specification document. So this isn't something that's going to go in the box. This is an MSDS sheet. This is for our manufacturing people to understand the material they're going to be dealing with. So it's a material safety data sheet. So I'm just going to, it's not something that's going to be an insert to the box. If it was an insert to the box, you would probably make an engineering item and then have a PDF or something to be something with an actual number that gets released and reviewed and things like that. This is just an input for us while we're manufacturing to make sure everybody understands the adhesive. The actual MSDS sheet is already in the system because it was also a deliverable from one of the project tasks. That's how it got in there. And now we've added it to the system, okay? I just want to show you how it behaves like an Excel spreadsheet. You just saw me resize all the columns based on resize the width. I can take and eliminate columns if I don't want to see them anymore. So you can see here I'm taking away columns from the spreadsheet type looking thing. And then I can also edit values right here. So the reason I could edit that one is because it's still, the box is not released yet. It's in work. Obviously, Megan's not going to be able to put properties on things that are released. But it does give you this spreadsheet type entry of properties, right? As opposed to going to the CAD tool and putting it there, I can do here and enter engineering item properties right from a spreadsheet, which is a pretty common request for managing properties, right? Next, I'm going to actually do some more. You can drag and drop columns. Again, I just want to show you the behaviors very familiar to what you're used to. And again, turn off another column, turn off the configuration column. For some reason it's getting on Megan's nerves. Then I sort by maturity state as Megan to bring the in-work items to the top of the list, right? This is a pretty small spreadsheet, so that's, a larger spreadsheet would be more obvious when you do this, but I'm going to just do that so I can bring those in-work items to the top so I can select them and release them as well. So that's just the box and the engineering item that has the adhesive, which itself is already released. So we do that. Now what we want to do is to actually show you the other types of things we can do here. So the view of the bill of material we've been looking at so far is something called a reference view, right? The reference view is the one that gives you quantities, okay? It's how many references to that item. That's why we've been seeing a quantity of 3 there for the caulk tube assembly. But if you flatten this out into a usage view, it is sort of flat, because what it does is, see how now you've got caulk tube assembly is listed 3 times. I'm pointing at the screen. You can't see me pointing, but I am. So this just takes the instances. So it's an instance type view. So we see all the instances, right? Instead of the quantity added up. So what I can do next is actually take another look. So we're looking at the direct view of the bill of material. It's often called an indented bill of material. So the direct view, if I have the ability to indent, there's multiple levels to that bill of material. The caulking gun has multiple levels. The caulking tube, as we know, is made up of 3 items. So you have that ability to expand and collapse that structure, right? The other type of view is a flattened view. So now I'm looking at just all the usage of all the items flattened out. So a lot of people call this a parts list, a flattened, a direct bill of, not direct, a flattened bill of material is really the only name I think I have for that one. But then we could also go back to the referenced view, and this would be what people would call a parts list, right? So I'm looking at the quantities. This is everything we'd have to have on hand to make this one package, right? The other tools, this is not a particularly large assembly that we're dealing with here, but if it was a larger assembly, there are ways to deal with, if this was pages and pages of components, imagine a jet engine or an industrial machine. Certainly maneuvering through that bill of material might get kind of bothersome or difficult. What you have is the ability to search, so you could search for items. This isn't particularly large, but you could search, you can filter, right, by items, like maybe just make, buy. Here, I'm just gonna group them by type. So you see that specification document, then the parts and the different types of materials are just all grouped together. Perfecto. All right, so what have we done so far? Well, Megan's done a bit, hasn't she? She's made that new top level assembly. We have all the components, everything's released in it, right? And now basically what's left to do is to release that top level assembly, right? So she's going to use the life cycle tool to release this gun tubes package. Next, she wants to be able to output this to downstream people or systems. So all of this bill of material information is also available to export into a CSV file. So here you have some of the same choices that we saw before when I'm looking at the columns. You're going to be able to pick and choose which columns you show. You're going to be able to pick what type, flattened or indented, or AKA direct. All those things are available for you. So you can preview the format, and everything else. So here you see that, she's just setting up basically what the CSV file is going to look like, right, for that downstream usage. And then when she hits export, it will create a CSV file, which we'll see show up in the bottom left-hand corner if you're quick. There it is. It did make a CSV file. We could open it up to prove that, but I think you'll take our word for it. It does indeed make a CSV file. So the next thing is, that I want to do is to create a new item from the existing item. So I'm going to stop for 1 second. So everything Megan did so far was to get that one packaging out, right? Now she wants to make a second package, duplicating this. So what does that mean? We want to also have on the shelf for our customers, our loyal customers who have purchased the 3 tubes and the gun, or maybe bought the gun separate and now wants to have our award-winning adhesive, to have a package, a box that just has 3 tubes of adhesive in a smaller box, right? No gun, because we're going to assume they already have the gun. So this duplicate function is going to allow me to take that structure and duplicate it. Now, you can just straight duplicate everything, copy everything. I don't need to copy because I just want to reference that same tube assembly and the adhesive again. I'm not going to make new tube assembly for, it's the same one, just in a different box, right? Now, this is a simple example, but certainly what I want you to understand about the duplicate command is that it will duplicate CAD data, drawings. This is that ability to make from another item. And again, I'm doing it without bothering anybody in the CAD world, right? So normally if Megan went to Eric and said, Eric, we're going to make a new package from the old package, I need you to make this CAD structure. Because remember, we didn't model any of this. I never had to see the box with the 3 tubes in it and the gun. We never went that far, right? With the CAD, we don't even have an existing model. But when we do this new duplicate, it could create CAD drawings for the CAD engineer just to pick it up and run and go without having to do a SOLIDWORKS file, save as, and figure out which things to copy and things like that. Am I just babbling, or does that make sense, you guys?
No, it makes sense to me.
All right, so she's going to go through this little menu and pick what she wants to do. She is going to duplicate the top. She's going to not include the gun. She wants to reuse the tube assemblies, she's going to exclude the box, and also she's going to reuse the actual, she's going to duplicate the part that has the assembly in it, the adhesive in it. So now she's going to rename this to a tubes only package. So there are the options to include drawings and stuff like that in there. Sorry, I was trying to point again and nobody can see me. But it doesn't do any good. I do it anyway. Talk with my hands even when there's nobody watching. It's the equivalent of dancing like nobody's watching. Anyway, now she goes and searches for that. So she's going to search for the tubes only package and also bring it back into this tool, the engineering release tool, so she can take a look at it. So again, she searches in her recent content because she literally just made it, grab it and open it into the engineering release. So now what you're going to see is that she has, when she looks at the direct view, just the caulk tube assembly and the material, and she's going to grab, she gives it a number, she's going to grab the smaller box and then release that. So in pretty quick order, she was able to make yet another package that is the smaller box with 3 tubes and the material for us to move forward with. So going now to close the loop, she's going to go back to the project tab, and she's going to go to that task, which is our final task of preparing the final package. Say it's completed. She just works more from the Gantt chart type view. She's going to grab those deliverables of the tubes only package as well as the gun with tubes, because those are both deliverables of this particular task. Okay, finished product, adds a little note thanking Eric for his help and his time with this particular project that we worked on together. Let him know that we were able to get the product out in record time because of his help and the use of the product release engineer tool.
Wow, record time.
So, and again, this is just, yeah, it is record time. Look at this. We've finished. When we go back to the Gantt chart, you see how early we are. Look, we weren't expecting this to be done until December. It's November. So she goes through here and she completes the milestone as well as the project itself and saves it as a completed project. And there you go. The 3DEXPERIENCE platform expedites another successful design and engineering project out the door.
Wow. Yeah, maybe we should see what Eric Engineer has been up to in the meantime.
Yeah, let's check it out. What's Eric Engineer been up to? So he was able to move on to his next project, but he did see the notification pop up while he's in SOLIDWORKS. And Eric sees Megan's comment, and of course, because he's a good Eric Engineer, he replies to that comment. That's pretty much all that Eric needs to do.
Yeah, and then just move on with his day. So Absolutely. Letting the engineers keep on engineering.
Exactly.
Do what we do best.
That's right. So just to wrap up, so what we endeavored to show you, which I hope you saw in 30 minutes or less, is a single environment for that CAD data. So we're all working out of that single CAD, that environment, but it's not just about the CAD data, right? Nobody's going to model adhesive, right? So it's just a matter of an item that needs to be purchased, that needs to be kept track of, and how much we need for that particular structure. So you did see me create new data. I used existing data and then manage that data. Remember adding numbers, releasing it, all that without consuming a CAD license. Now, I do want to keep in mind, there is, Eric Engineer could apply engineering item numbers and release stuff. But again, if that's a waste of his time, because he's an engineer and should be designing, it's easier to put it on to somebody else who would typically do that kind of stuff, kind of get everything ready to go and package it and do that kind of work, right? We also saw Megan deal with all that product structure in a way that looked like a bill of material. She was able to look at the bill of material and export that bill of material, create it, manage it, and export that bill of material. So what does this do for us? Well, I can tell you it's a single environment. So we prepared that product structure, and now we have a product structure for 2 new products to go to market with. Now, how you actually manufacture it, so just to talk about how you could use that downstream, normally people just stop at the bill of material where you saw Megan export that BOM, and then it's some other system that deals with it from then on. And Megan may never know how the tubes actually get filled with material. But in a single system like this, we actually do have a role, which maybe if I get invited back to the John and Gian show or one of my cohorts, we could take a look at the manufacturing items engineer would actually take that engineering bill of material and transform it into a manufacturing bill of material, the process. So how does it get made? You don't assemble the whole tube the way Eric had it with the cap already on the end. You have to leave the cap off until you figure out a way to fill it with the adhesive. And again, there's a methodology to doing that, managing, handling the adhesive, things like that. So we're going to fill the tubes, put the cap on, put it in the box with the gun, and never mind getting the gun manufactured with sheet metal and things like that. All of that is a process, right? So we'll be able to use that same system to be able to transform that. And what's the good news about that is that if there's ever a change from an engineering perspective, we find out we have an issue with the tube design, which I'm not saying we will, Eric, or the gun design, if we did an engineering change at all and that bill of material changed, the manufacturing would be aware of it and be able to adjust their process accordingly. So that is my story for the product release engineer.
Wow, thank you so much, Lisa. We know that was a lot to cover in a very brief amount of time, but if you have any questions at this point, go ahead and type them into the question box of the webinar window, and we'll answer as many as we can. So if you liked what you saw today and you want to learn more about the product release engineer role, then you can go ahead and visit that first link, which also is in the chat box of the webinar window, and you'll find that in our follow-up emails that you'll receive within an hour of the closing of this session. So if you want to learn more, click that first link to see more about product release engineer. To learn more about 3DEXPERIENCE Works as a whole, then you can just go to solidworks.com/3DEXPERIENCE-works. Again, that link was also in the email, as well as the last one, which is a link that you can click to explore past sessions of this webinar. So maybe you want to go back in time and watch John and Lisa and I create the caulking gun together before we got to this point. You can go ahead and do that just by going to the Exploring 3DEXPERIENCE Works live webpage on solidworks.com.